Pero dito matagal. Ano ba dito sa labas?
Check mic.
Gigi.
Hello, 1, 2, 3.
One, two, three. Teacher po namin sa call center basics.
Oo, kaya pala maganda ang boses.
Call center, 3 subject namin sa kanya. Call center basics, video production, saka ano. Oo nga pang BPO yung mga ano namin yun eh. BPO kaya freelancing namin yung namin. Dalawa. Oo nga po, ginagawa na nga, pinapagawa nga kami ng opening queue, saka ano, assurance.
Hindi sa ano, kay Tito. Kaya
Wala pa akong opening queue eh.
madali na mag-google ka na.
Oo nga. Thank you for calling Amazon. This is Steve. Mas mag-aano pa kami. Ito tawag.
Okay, good afternoon, 3-1. Wait lang. Using ko lang yung setup ko. Okay, again, I appreciate if you open your webcam. So for today's session, we'll talk about the Holy Trinity of photography. Okay, so you'll have an output later after this discussion. So listen carefully. One moment. I'll just edit the shares. Just 1 second. Pause, disable annotation, hide themes, share. Okay. 1 second. Ayan. So, pagpasensyahan niyo na ako, nakatingala ako. Just, nakakast kasi sa TV. Okay, so, iangat ko na lang yung webcam para hindi masyadong awkward pag nakatingala. All right, so let's start. So we have in a scale of 1 to 10, class, can you rate your familiarity or skills in photography, or familiarity with the Holy Trinity of photography, the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO? Utilize the chat box. 10 being very skillful, then 5 being neutral, and 1 being completely beginner. All right. So don't worry, we'll make this very accessible to all, even though your rating, your self-rating in this is 1. I'm sure after this discussion, from 1, it will become 8 or 9. Just the basic, okay? So the Holy Trinity of photography. So we have here. So I want you guys to utilize the chat box as we go on in our discussion. Just 1 second. Narinig niyo yung class, sorry. Alam ko na-mute ko. Okay. So we have now, I will not explain this yet, these three, because it will not make sense to you just yet. Okay, there is a dedicated slide for each of the Holy Trinity. So the Holy Trinity that I'm talking about is, of course, the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. So let's start with the shutter speed. Okay, so this is the refers to the amount of time that an average camera shutter remains open, so exposing the camera sensor film to light. So it is typically measured in seconds or fractions of a second. So the most usual way to read this is the shutter speed is 1/1000th of a second, or 1/250th of a second, or even 2 seconds. Okay, so your shutter speed can range from 1/2000th of a second to 15 seconds. Okay, so just imagine the range. 1/2000th of a second to 15 seconds. Okay, so the camera shutter remains open. So of course, the logic there is the more time that the camera shutter is open, the more light it will collect, right? And the less time it is open, then the less light it will collect. So therefore, if your shutter speed is 1/2000th of a second, it's like the speed of light. Ganun lang kabilis mag-open. So tendency is very minimal yung light na makokollect niya. Okay? And if it's your shutter speed is around 15 seconds, so napakatagal naka-open. Okay? So, pwede ka pang mag-CR muna, okay? Na naka-open pa rin yung camera mo. So, ang dami niyang light na makokollect. So, that's the logic there. So, shutter speed. So, a faster shutter speed is freezes fast-moving object. So, more we use this when we capture a moving object, such as sports photography, okay? And while the slower shutter speed, for example, 1 second, create a sense of motion and can capture more light. So fun fact, the average speed of human blink is 1/10th of a second. Okay, so that's how average speed of our blink, 1/10th of a second. So here is an example of um, as a very fast and a little bit long, relatively long shutter speed. So 1.6 second long shutter speed. Yung picture sa right side if you're facing your monitor, and sa left side is 1/500th of a second is the shutter speed. So see the difference. So here is another example of a very fast shutter speed. So this is to demonstrate the power of shutter speed. So this is an electric fan that is turned on. So by manipulating the shutter speed, can you check in the details what is the shutter speed that we use to capture this picture? Uh, you can type in the chat box so we can see it. Yes, correct. So MIGS 1/2000th of a second is the shutter speed that we use to capture a moving, a functioning electric fan, ceiling fan. So sa ano yan, somewhere in second floor sa PUP main. So that's the power of shutter speed. You can freeze a moving object no matter how fast it is. Though we use the almost the maximum power of our device to capture it. So here's another example of uh, a 1/500th of a second shutter speed. So she is actually doing fire dance. So you have to capture fast moving performance. So you use fast shutter speed. Here also 1/500th of a second. So see how her hands are frozen during the performance, but it's actually moving. Okay, so here it is. So if we choose the 1/1000th of a second, 500, and so on and so forth. So we have the different types of movements. Okay, so if we use just 1/4 of a second, quarter of a second, then we have a blurry image of an action picture. Okay, now let's proceed to the second of the Holy Trinity, the ISO. Okay, so this is basically your sensitivity to light. Okay, so a higher ISO allows for a better performance in low light. So yung chart kanina, yung first slide natin, it doesn't make sense yet. Pero after I discuss the Holy Trinity, it will make sense already. Okay, so ISO is the sensitivity to low light. So the higher the ISO, it can range from 3600, okay, to even just 100. Okay, so yun yung range niya ng ISO. From 100 to as high as 3600. So of course, pag nasa park ka, tanghaling tapat, ang ISO na gagamitin mo, we don't want our sensor to be sensitive sa light. So pag daytime environment is very bright, so 100 yung ISO mo. Then kapag night photography, we can make our sensor more sensitive to light. So instead of using 100, we use around 1600 to 3200 ISO. Okay. So the lower the ISO is, the less sensitive it is to light. And the higher the number, the ISO, the more sensitive it is to light. So increasing the ISO is useful in low light situation, just like in night photography, the environment is dark. So therefore, we increase the ISO. Okay, but it's essential to balance it with shutter speed and aperture settings to avoid overexposure and noise. So that's what we are looking for, balancing. Parang math to class. Ibabalance natin yung tatlo. And may isa pang variable na missing dun sa tatlo is yung environment. Okay, it's either daytime or nighttime. So yun, yung apat na yun yung i-juggle natin. So again, sa shutter speed, the faster the shutter speed, the less light. In ISO, the higher the ISO, the more sensitive it is to light. So here are some example of ISO focus images that we have. Okay, so this is the noise that we are talking about, the grain effects, di ba? Here in, though it's nighttime, it focuses on the light. Pinipicture mo yung mismong ilaw. Kaya kahit na i-consider natin siya na, yeah, technically nighttime to, bababaan pa rin natin yung ISO kasi mismong bumbilya yung pinipicture natin eh. Okay? So, bumbilya na yung pinipicture natin, tapos tatasan pa natin yung ISO, eh malinaw na nga to, then magkakaroon talaga ng grain effect. Okay? So, here's another demonstration of the increase in ISO. So, from 100 to 200 to 1600. So, we can consider that the environment here is more on the dark side. So, for us, for our picture to not be underexposed or overexposed, we increase the ISO. Okay. So that's what we are avoiding, the overexposure and underexposure of our picture. So if it's dark, then ISO will help us collect more light. So therefore, if the environment is dark, then ISO, the higher the ISO, the more sensitivity is to light, the more light it will collect. Therefore, we increase the ISO to balance it up. Okay. Here's another example. Okay. So here, ito yung demonstration ng paggamit ng napakataas na ISO. 6,400 yung ISO na ginamit natin dito. Kasi it's a very dark environment. So we need all the light that we can get. So we increase the ISO to 6,400. I think that's the highest possible ISO na nagamit ko sa isang picture. And if you use that type of ISO in a light environment, what will happen? Is it underexposed or overexposed? You can utilize the chat box. What will be the tendency if you use 6,400 in a daytime photography? What will, yes, the picture will become overexposed. So there are really ways for you to use the actual ISO in different types of scenario. Kaya nga, 'di ba, in photography, you'll hear them, yung mga jargon nila is magtitimpla ka ng settings mo dun sa Holy Trinity. Yun yung four variables na i-consider mo. Yung environment, if it's daytime or nighttime, then the Holy Trinity. Now let's proceed to the next one. So if we have shutter speed, the ISO, now we have the aperture. Here in aperture, it is measured in f-stops. So we can say na f stands for focal, but f is usually just a variable, okay, to indicate an aperture. So we have different types of aperture. It can range from 1.4. So this is how you read this. So usually aperture is being represented by letter F, then slash, then the aperture value. So you can read this as f stop 1.4 or aperture 1.4 aperture. Okay. And the wider the aperture, the lower the number. Okay. And the narrower the aperture, so there is a illustration later after this slide. And you'll see how the aperture works. Okay. Now, here we can say that for us to remember, we have a mnemonic, okay, mnemonic device or something for us to remember an information. So the number of aperture is the number of person you want to take a picture. So you can achieve the bokeh effect. So bokeh effect is yun yung default in photography, yung blurry background. Are you familiar with the bokeh effect? Okay. So bokeh effect, can you do a reaction. Thumbs up if you've heard bokeh effect before. So bokeh effect is simply a blurry background because of the aperture. Okay? So ganito class, masayang tandaan na yung number ng aperture mo is yung number ng tao na gusto mong picturean. Okay? So yun yung mnemonic device dyan. For example, 1.4 yung aperture mo. Ibig sabihin, you want to take a picture of at least one person. 1.4. Pwedeng dalawa, pero hindi pwedeng tatlo kasi may, ano na yun, confusing na yun. Gumamit ka na ng, mag, mag, nahirapan na mag-focus yung aperture sa tatlong tao. So kapag 1.4 yung aperture, it's either one person, one item, an average of 1.4. So if you want to take a picture of 20 persons, so probably yung aperture mo, itataasan mo din. Gagawin mo siya mga around 9 or 10. Okay? So, ganun yung um, mnemonic dito, yung para madali natin matandaan. If you want to take a picture of two persons, then yung aperture mo dapat mas malapit sa 2. Kasi two person or two object yung kailangan gusto mong kukunan ng picture. So probably you adjust your aperture to 1.8, okay, 1.9 for you to achieve the bokeh effect. So we have here some example of aperture focus picture. Okay, so dito f4, 4 yung aperture niya. So let's see how many objects yung na-focus dun sa 4 aperture. So the grass, we have the grass, we have the wooden vase, and the wooden structure. So we can say na an average of 4. Malapit pa rin sa 4. Okay? But for aperture 11, so we can say na malapit sa 11. So kahit 7 lang, malapit pa rin yung sa 11. So these branches here, ito, yun. So yun lang yung ano, yung pwede nating gamiting ano, mnemonic. Familiar naman kayo sa mnemonic device, di ba class? As an education major, you'll encounter mnemonic. So thumbs up if you have heard the word mnemonic before. Hindi demonic mnemonic. Okay, hindi nyo lang alam yung tawag pero ginagamit nyo na siya dati pa. Ang mnemonic is something that you remember. For example, yung placement ng solar system, ay ng planet sa solar system natin, 'di ba? So, kung tinuruan kayo ng teacher nyo sa science nung grade 5 kayo, okay, just remember this sentence and you will never forget the proper placement of the planet in our solar system. So, tinuro sa akin, my very illustrating marriage just sat under 9 planet. So, yun. Just by remembering that, I'm able to remember that my stands for Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, very illustrating Mary, Jupiter, Saturn. Yun, naalala ko na yung placement ng, yun yung mnemonic device, yun yung example ng mnemonic device. Some information that you associate so that you can easily remember something. Okay, alam niyo na yung mnemonic device? Mnemonic device. Understand? Yon. Okay, very good. So, yung mnemonic natin dito sa aperture, the number of the aperture value is dedicated to the number of object that you want to capture. So, yon. Okay, so ito, example, di ba? Yung aperture niya is 22. So, you assume malapit sa 22 yung number of object na napo-focus niya. Okay, so F22. So, yan. Pag binilang natin yan, malapit siya sa 22. Kahit 15 lang, malapit pa rin sa 22. So, yun yung. So, we have here a Okay, so ito. Ang aperture natin dito is 1.8. Yan. So si ma'am is the probably 1.2. Then the rest, yon. Malapit pa rin sa one person yung nakukuha natin na aperture. So that's the bokeh effect class. It is when a blurry background. So yun yung default na idea natin when it comes to photography or sa DSLR, di ba? Yung blurry background, bokeh effect. Okay, so ito yon. The the wider the opening is, of course, the more light it passes through. The narrower the opening is, the less light, less light. So more light. Yeah. Don't worry, I'll give you a copy of this PowerPoint. Okay, ito yung chart na intimidating kanina kasi ito yung unang slide. Pero the next time you see it, it will make sense already. Okay, so we understand that ito yung different types of aperture. 32, 22, 16 is 11. Less light yung mapapasok sa image natin. Less light, di ba? Pag here's the shutter speed. So mabilis nga yung opening, 1,000 of a second, napakabilis. 1,500, napakabilis din. So walang opportunity makapag-collect ng light. So tendency is less light din. Less light. Okay? Ito naman sa ISO, since napakababa ng sensitivity niya sa light, so less light din. Ito. So ito yung team less. Mababang ISO, mabilis na shutter speed, yun yung mga kapag hindi mo na balance, magiging underexposed. Maliit yung opening, mataas yung aperture, so ito yung team less light. Okay? Now, here are the team more light. So again, the aperture, malaki yung opening. So napaka daming lights na pwedeng i-collect. And shutter speed, ang tagal naka-open ng ating shutter. So therefore, more light it will collect. So ito yung team more. Sa ISO naman, mataas yung value, malakas yung sensitivity niya sa light. So therefore, team more light ito. Okay? So aperture, uh, shutter speed, then ISO. Yung mga sensitive sa light. So kapag gagamit ka nito, make sure that your environment is not daytime or not overexposed yung environment mo. So maganda siya sa night photography. Ito, maganda siya sa day photography. But again, ibabalance mo yan. Then ito, we can say that these are the typical range of the settings that we have in, okay, ito, we can say that this is the neutral number. Okay. And yan. Usually kapag mga 400, 800 ISO, pwede pa yan. Okay? Nasa neutral range pa yan. Pero pag nandito na yan, super sensitive na yan sa light. Oh, what happened? Okay, nawalan tayo ng internet. Okay, let's continue. Saan ako naputol, class? Nasa ano na ba? More than 2 minutes ako nawala. Gano'n ako katagal nawala? Mga ilang seconds? Estimate nyo.
Mga 30 seconds po.
Okay. Sige. Good. Okay, thank you. So going back, okay, so I already put a imaginary line to separate this uh, two numbers. Now, okay, so this one, let's examine some pictures we have here. So we can say na environment is nighttime. Okay, so less light. So notice less light ang environment natin. Then we have a shutter speed of 1/500 of a second. So is 1/500 of a second dark or light? You can use the chat box. Madilim ba ang 1/500 of a second or maliwanag? Shutter speed of 500 of a second. So tell me if it's dark or light in the chat box based on our chart a while ago. Diba? Shutter speed. Mabilis ba ang 1/500 of a second? Or mabagal? If it's mabilis, then can it collect more light or collect less light? So tell me if the bulb. Okay, pasensya na guys. Binuksan ko na yung pinto para hindi makapasok yung wifi. Ay, makapasok wifi. Okay, where are we? We are dissecting the pictures, right? To
Yes
check.
po, sir.
Okay, thank you for confirming. So here is our first picture. So remember that we are considering four variables, the Holy Trinity and the environment. So if we want to balance it up, dapat dalawa doon nasa dark side and dalawa yung nasa lighter side para hindi siya overexposed or underexposed. Got it? So yun yung gagawin natin. So let's check the Holy Trinity of this picture. Is 1/500 of a second on the dark side or the light side? What do you think? You can use the chat box, utilize the chat box. Dark. Okay, very good. So it's dark. So we have two dark already. So first dark is the environment. Then the shutter speed of 1/500 of a second, is dark. So most likely, yung natitirang variables, dapat ang i-aim natin is nasa light side sila. So ang aperture na 1.8 is a very wide opening. So it's on the light side, the 1.8. Then the ISO 1600 is sensitive to light. So it collects more light. Okay? So we're able to balance those four variables: environment, dark, the shutter speed, dark, our ISO is light, and the aperture is light. So therefore, our picture is not overly exposed and not so much underexposed. Okay, you get the gist, class? You get the gist of how we balance our picture. Thumbs up if you are following. All right. Okay, perfect. So next is here. So it is on an outside environment. Okay, so we have a light environment. So let's check if we can balance it using the Holy Trinity. So the ISO is on the dark side. So because it's 100, so we don't want any more sensitivity to light kasi magiging overexposed. So we keep the ISO to the minimum kasi outside naman to eh. And the aperture of 5.6 and the shutter speed of 120, we can say na dark siya. Okay? So dark then um 1.1320th of a second is still fast. So it's dark. So we have two dark, the ISO and the shutter speed, dalawang dark, and isang light. Yung light is yung environment. So we can say na yung 5.6, hindi man siya ganun ka light and ganun ka dark, na-compensate niya naman yung actual environment, which is light. Okay? So, doon papasok yung pagtitimpla mo. So we already have two dark, the ISO and the shutter speed, two dark, and one light, which is the environment. So yung aperture na lang yung ititimpla mo. So here in aperture, you check if it's what will be the effect on the actual picture. So 5.6, it's still a relatively around medium size opening. So it will still gather light. Okay? So kapag binabaan pa natin yung aperture dan, kasi 'di ba? We can say na may possibility na maging overexposed na tong picture na to. So balance pa rin ang nangyari kahit meron tayong dalawang dark, isang light, then a little bit neutral na aperture. So it depends on you on how to uh, balance it up. But you can always check it. So what we are providing the example here are the extreme example. Extreme dark, extreme light, so that we can see the contrast of those four variables. Okay, so next. Okay, so we have here the first is the aperture. We have light, aperture. Then we have 1/640th of a second. So therefore that's dark. So what, one light, one dark. And in ISO, we have dark, and the environment, we have light. So we're able to balance it up. Our image is not overexposed. Kasi yung dalawang light dito is yung aperture and the environment. Dalawang dark is yung shutter speed and yung ISO. So two dark, two light equals to this. Okay? Any extreme deviation in our variables, there is a tendency na maging overexposed na tong picture na to. Got it, class? Do you follow? Thumbs up if do you follow? Okay, Kyle. Okay, very good, everyone. Next is, okay, this one. So we have, so I think it is a environment is dark. So one dark. Then the rest is, pwede pa rin naman maging balance yun. One dark, then the rest is more on neutral. Pero on the brighter, brighter, mm, brighter side. Pero it's more on neutral. Na-gets mo ba, class? Kasi yung kanina, example natin, solid to dark, solid to light. Here naman, isang dark, which is the environment, then the rest, semi-neutral. So, possible pa rin na maka-achieve ka ng hindi properly exposed picture if you follow that. So pwede nga yung environment neutral, then yung Holy Trinity mo lahat din neutral. So hindi pa rin overexposed and underexposed yung image mo. Kaya it is really up to you to balance it up. Ikaw pa rin yung magtitimpla. Pero yun yung basta familiar ka sa concept um, ng Holy Trinity, your picture will always be um, properly exposed. Okay? One moment. Okay, here is ito. Let's check it's more of an aperture example. Okay, 1.8. So ang one item natin yun is yung phone. Then 0.8 is yung kamay. So 'di ba? 1.8 pa rin yung aperture. Pero let's identify this in the context of balancing. So 1.8 is very bright. Okay, bright. Then we have bright is the aperture and dark is the shutter speed. Environment is bright also. And the ISO is, even though it's just 400, dark pa din yan. Okay, so balance pa din. Kasi environment bright, aperture bright, then our shutter speed dark, then ISO dark. So properly exposed pa rin yung image natin dito. Okay? So thumbs up again if do you follow? Right. So again, ito yung kanina na let's check the balancing of this image. So 1/200 of a second, dark. Then madilim kasi yan sa classroom na to. So we can say na dark din. Environment, dark. 2,000 of a seconds, dark. Then ISO 6,400. Okay, very sensitive to light, so very bright. Then 1.8 is the aperture, very bright also. So too bright and too dark. Okay. So yung classroom na to, hindi naman siya ganun kadim, pero um, more on deviation niya is semi-dim. Kaya nakikita pa rin natin yung nagkaroon na siya ng grainy effect. Okay? So siguro kung binabaan natin yung ISO natin dito ng 3,200 lang yung ISO, medyo nabawasan yung grain effect. So yun. This is the result of that. So ito naman, shutter speed natin is 1/250th of a second. So we can say the dark din yun. Then dark environment. So too dark. Then dalawang bright. ISO 3,200. And aperture 1.8. Pero we can say na underexposed tong picture na to. Dapat ang ginawa natin dito is tinaasan pa natin yung aperture. Kaso yung lens ng camera ko, maximum na aperture niya is 1.8 lang. So, depende sa lens mo, mas magaganda pa tong picture na to. Pwedeng maging 1.4 dapat yung aperture para mas malaki talaga yung capture ng light. Kasi kapag tinaasan pa natin yung ISO, max na yan eh. Magkaka-grainy effect na talaga siya. 3,200 pa nga lang, mayroon na siyang grainy effect eh. What more 6,400. So let's balance it again. We have the environment, dark. We have the 1/250th of a second, okay, dark. The ISO, light. 3,200 light siya. Then the aperture, 1.8 is light. Though, underexposed pa rin siya, kaya nga that may adjustment pa tayo naman dito. Okay, ito naman class, you can, may activity tayo later, pero pwede nyong gamitin yung cellphone nyo. Kahit wala kayong DSLR, okay lang yun. May pro mode naman yung mga smartphone nyo. Di ba class? Thumbs up nga kung may pro mode yung cellphone nyo. You can adjust the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed of your phone. Can you do that? Yes. So just like this one. So ito, yung example ng 15 seconds shutter speed. Diba? Napakatagal. 15 seconds for you to achieve this effect. So, 15 seconds na naka-open. So, syempre, very bright yun. Very bright. So, we have bright of 15 seconds, light 15 seconds, then aperture 1.79. Is it bright or dark? Aperture 1.79. Bright or dark? Use the chat box. The aperture 1.79. Will we collect more light or less light? Dark side ba or light side yung 1.79? Okay, bright side. Correct, Steven. So, if we already have 15 seconds na bright, very bright yon. Kasi napakaraming light na pwedeng collect sa 15 seconds, di ba? Then 1.79, napaka-bright din yan. Ang ISO na 50 is very dark. So sa tingin nyo class, ano yung environment ng picture na to? Bright or dark or very dark? Mamili kayo sa apat. Bright, very bright, dark, or very dark. I-chat nyo sa chat box for me to check if you can still follow. So, very bright, bright, dark, or very dark. Mamili kayo sa apat. Ano yung missing variable to achieve this picture? Bright, bright. Very bright. Okay makinig kayo. We already have two bright. If your answer, so two bright sa shutter speed and aperture, then we have a dark in ISO. Then, ano yung properties ng missing variable, which is the environment? Okay? So, kung ginawa natin siyang very bright, yung environment, so tatlo na yung very bright. Isa lang yung yung dark natin, yung ISO. So, ano mangyayari sa picture natin? Okay? So, magiging underexposed. I mean, magiging overexposed kasi puro bright na siya eh. Then bright ka pa. So, puti na lang yan. Wala ka na makikita dyan sa picture na yan. So, your final answer, is it bright, very bright? I mean, very bright, bright, dark, or very dark? Final answer. Ano yung environment dyan? Dark, very dark. How about the others? Okay. Now you are getting it. Okay. For us to balance it, the 15 seconds is very bright already. So to compensate for that, the room that this picture was taken is very dark. Very dark. As in pitch black. Walang ilaw halos. Yung lighter lang. Lighter lang yan. Ginanong ko. So pinatay ko lahat ng ilaw. Tinakbo ko yung bintana to make the room very dark. Then nag-set up ako ng stable na camera sa cellphone, ng tripod. Then for 15 seconds, sinulat ko yung pangalan ko gamit ang lighter. 15 seconds yan. Paulit-ulit, ganyan. Yan, 15 seconds. Then yan yung settings. Then after 15 seconds, yan yung na-capture. Okay? So we're able to balance that. At gagawin nyo yan, class. Okay? Gagawin nyo yan. Kailangan nyo pwede yung flashlight sa cellphone nyo, i-set up nyo sa um, 15 or even 20 seconds yung shutter speed. Then lowest aperture. Then your ISO is set to 50. Then very dark room. And you'll able to achieve this picture here. So yan yung gagawin nyo, class. Okay? So later, may template naman sa output nyo. Okay, let's examine this. What is is it overexposed or underexposed? Overexposed, di ba? So let's check if why it is overexposed. Check natin. So we can say na environment is bright, then environment bright, di ba? Then aperture bright, then ISO bright. Yung isa lang yung dark natin, which is the 1/250th of a second. So isa lang yung dark. So talo talaga yung isang dark sa tatlong bright. So naging overexposed yung picture na to. Okay? Now, take a guess what is yan, Sir Joey. Guess what is the ISO of this picture? Okay? So type in the chat box, what is the ISO? Ilagay nyo yung value na tingin nyo. ISO can range from 100 to 6,400. So, kung ito yung picture, isipin nyo kung ilan yung ISO. Okay, 1.6 for Kyle. How about the others? 500 is the ISO. Okay. How about the others? 400. Let's see kung sino yung pinakamalapit. We're just looking for the ISO. Okay. Okay, so I guess that's everyone. So the ISO here in this picture is 100. Kasi sa ano to sa oval nung NSED, yung National Simultaneous Emergency Drill. 100 kasi very bright na dun sa oval, 'di ba? Then of course, I want to achieve a bokeh effect. So therefore, matic na yung dalawa na yon kasi gusto ko we have the bokeh effect. So gusto ko mababa yung aperture para may bokeh effect. Then sa oval to and mababang aperture is brighter. Okay? Then oval, dalawa na yung bright natin. So, yung ISO natin at saka shutter speed dapat dark. Okay? To balance everything up. Okay, next. Guess how much is the ISO for this? Oops, do not answer yet. Okay, I want everyone to answer simultaneously. I'll give you 5 seconds. Pag sinabi kong go, sabay-sabay kayo magpe-press ng enter. Okay? So thumbs up nga kung clear. Pag sinabi kong go, sa kanya i-press yung enter, yung sagot nyo. Okay. So guess what is the ISO of this picture? So wag nyo munang itatype. Again, it can range from 100 to 6,400. Yung pinakamalapit is the correct answer. So when I say go, press enter to check. Okay, what is the ISO of this picture? Okay, enter your answer. Okay. Now we're talking. we're able to identify who is not confused in the concept. So this is in sa 6th floor. Ano yung tanghalan na yun? Basta madilim doon sa 6th floor. Are you familiar with that class? Yon. Very good, Migs. Claro M. Recto. Claro M. Recto Hall. Yon, madilim doon. So therefore, madilim, we need to get all the light we can get for us, our picture not to be underexposed. So let's check is how much is the ISO of this picture. Yon, 3:2. Okay. So we have, let's check if it's still balanced. 1.8, bright, ISO, bright, environment, dark, 1/500 of a seconds, dark. Okay, so again, our picture, it's still not um, properly exposed still. Okay. Okay, next. Wag mo na i-click class ha. Okay, now guess what is the okay, tatasan ko na yung dalawa na yung hanapin ko. I-type nyo kung ilan, properly type class ha. What is the ISO and aperture of this picture? Okay, isulat nyo muna pag mag-ISO kayo yung word na ISO, all caps, ISO. Then the variable, space the variable. Then in aperture, F slash the value. Okay, guess the aperture and the ISO of this picture. Wag mo muna i-click. Okay, so thumbs up if you have an answer already. Guess the ISO and the aperture of this picture. Not yet? Okay, take your time. Oh, wag muna ilalagay. Wag niyo muna nga ilalagay yung sagot niyo eh. Wala pang go. Okay. So, okay, nagsagot na kayo. Sige. Sige. Okay, enter niyo na answer niyo. Wala pang go eh. Pero sige na. F aperture 16? Meron bang 16 person or 16 object dito sa picture natin? Okay, 1.6. Kalma lang, kalma lang. 1.6. Okay. So let's check your answers. 101.8. Okay, very good, Ninya. You are really following. Yung yun, 16. Hindi siya 16 kasi ano, here's the answer. Okay. So, 1.86 and 100. May nakakakuha ba? Okay, perfect si Ninya. So that's how we balance it, okay? Though, pwede naman siya sa ano, sa ISO 200 para medyo ano siya, may konting light. Pwede pa rin hanggang doon, pero hanggang doon lang. So, very good. Yung mga nag-answer ng 100 then ISO 100 then 1.8 aperture. Perfect yan. Yung mga nagsagot na malayo na 5.8, 5.6 aperture. Okay, nawala na naman. Sinara kasi yung pinto eh. Hindi nakapasok yung wifi. Okay, going back. So I hope yung mga nagsagot ng 16 aperture, na typo lang yon, na 1.6 talaga yung gusto nyong isagot. Okay? Okay, next item. I hope everyone will get this. Okay, now guess the ISO and the aperture of this image. Huwag niyo munang i-click yung enter. When I say enter, you enter your answer. Okay, enter your answers. How about the others? So yan. Okay. Let's check. Okay. Though understandable naman class na yung iba sa inyo nagsagot ng 800. Pero hindi naman kasi hindi ito outdoor. 'Di ba? May wala naman naglalaro ng anong laro to class? Jenga ba yan? Sa outdoor, 'di ba? Mostly indoor siya. So kahit bright siya, hindi pa rin naman siya ganun ka-bright. So we are not using the maximum ISO for this. So we can use um, a little bit more sensitive to light na neutral, okay, 800. Kasi we have uh, indoor setting. So indoor, usually neutral environment siya, di ba? Then ang ISO 800 is, we can say that it's still a neutral number. So dalawang neutral, then isang I mean, bright, which is the aperture 1.8, and isang dark. So dalawang neutral, isang dark, isang light. It's still balance pa din. Okay? So do you follow class? Thumbs up if you follow. Walang nakaka-follow, walang nagka-thumbs up. Okay, 7, 8, alright. So yun. So medyo na-trick kayo dito, no? Kasi yung environment is indoor, so mostly neutral siya. Kapag indoor, neutral, so pipili ka ng isang neutral sa katauhan ng ISO 800. Okay. Next. Okay, eto. Dito na tayo magkakatalo. Guess the ISO and the shutter speed of this picture. ISO and shutter speed. Okay? Yung pinakamalapit lang naman yung hanapin. Huwag nyo man nang i-enter. Okay? Shutter speed. thumbs up yung may sagot na. Okay, 1. Five. All right. Now, enter your answer. You can now enter your answers. Wala pa nag-enter ng sagot? Okay. I like what I'm seeing. You are really getting it already. Okay, 1.6 ISO. Shutter speed 1/500 of a second. Let's see kung sino yung pinakamalapit. Uy, napakahusay. I think may nakakuha. Yun, Yuri. Perfect, Yuri. And okay, malapit din si Nina. 1.6, 1/1000th of a second. Pati si Kyle. Okay. One step higher lang yung ano niya, na-miss niya. Okay. Though may nagsagot ng ISO 200. Okay. So, magiging underexposed kapag 200 lang yung ISO natin. Then, yun. Yung mga nagsagot ng mababang ISO, review the concept of balancing kasi magiging underexposed talaga kapag binabaan natin. Anything less than 1,000 na ISO, underexposed na to. Okay, so very good sa mga nakakuha. Okay, another one. Last na to before we proceed to your activity. Guess the ISO and the aperture. ISO and aperture. ISO and aperture. Plus one. Baka hindi na updated to. 1/800. Okay, the ISO and the aperture. And yeah, ilagay niyo na lahat ng sagot niyo. Okay. 8. Okay, 1.8. So here is the answer. Kalma lang guys, huwag kayong magkakagulo. So the ISO and the ISO 6.4 and aperture is 1.8. So uh, I understand some of you are answering very high aperture, okay? And we need to consider the the environment here, okay? So I mentioned a while ago na ang average na aperture is the number of objects sa screen, di ba? And you might consider this a different type of object, but it is really just um, one church. So binabaan pa rin natin yung aperture natin and to make it light. So dalawang light, dalawang dark pa din ang ginawa natin. Kasi kung binabaan natin yung aperture dito, magiging underexposed na siya. If we dissect the balancing here, so obviously the environment is dark. The shutter speed of 1/500 of a second is dark. And so we need to bright to balance it out. So ISO, given na yun kasi dark. So lagyan natin ng 6.4. Now, kung ginawa natin, tinasa natin yung aperture, magiging underexposed tong picture na to. So 1.8 pa din. Though yung nagsagot ng aperture na mataas, understandable, yung neutral. Okay, so I like this answer also by Trish. So aperture for ISO 6.4. All right. I think you are getting it already. Okay, I'm sure nag-increase na yung knowledge nyo in in the Holy Trinity and basic photography. Now, are you ready for your output class? Thumbs up nga kung ready na kayo sa inyong napakadaling output na gamitan nyo lang ng mga cellphone nyo. Okay, so here it is. Let me share my screen. May template siya, class. Binigyan ko na kayo ng guide na for you to easily follow it. One second. Okay, ito na. Okay. So magti-take lang kayo ng 6 na picture. So isang picture may mataas na aperture, mababang aperture. Yung isa may mataas na ISO, yung isa may mababang ISO. Yung isa may mataas na shutter speed. And yung isa may mabilis na shutter speed. So ganun lang. 6 picture with in the context of the Holy Trinity of photography. You can use your phone to capture it. Okay, ang medyo challenging dyan is yung 15 seconds na shutter speed. Kasi dapat super dim yung light ng room. Then, dapat stable, naka-tripod or kung wala kayong tripod, naka super stable ng cellphone nyo while you are doing this. Then that meron kayong pwedeng cellphone, flashlight, or pwedeng lighter. Pero mag-ingat kayo sa apoy kasi ipapaikutin nyo siyang ganyan. Ang pattern is the first letter of your first name. Got it? So, swerte nung mga may madaling first letter, S, tsaka si Von, V lang. Pag ganun lang. Okay, for 15 seconds, ganun pa. Ang mahirap dito yung mga complicated first letter, yung H. So, si Harleen. Paano mo gagawin yan, Harleen? Pwede yung dalawang kamay. Yung isa, baba. Yung isa pa ganun. Got it? I'll give you a copy of this template naman. So, basta kausapin nyo lang yung magulang nyo na may ginagawa kayong activity. Baka mamaya makakita kayo na sa madilim na room, tapos may kandila, tapos ano yung ginagawa nyo? Baka mamaya makita ng magulang nyo, may sinasamon kayo na, di ba? May sinasamon kayo demonyo. Alright, deadline, good question. 2 weeks pa naman yan. So you have 2 weeks to submit it. October 19 pa yung deadline. So you have a lot of time to practice it. Okay? So 6 pictures lang yan. And nasa opposite spectrum of each of the Holy Trinity. Okay, max ISO, max shutter speed, max aperture, and the opposite. Okay. So yun lang naman class ang ating activity for today's session. Do you have any question? Sir, yung phone ko po walang 15 seconds. Shutter from 10, rekta po 20. Yun, pwede 20. Pwede 20. Meron ngang 30 minutes. 15 minutes, di ba? Yung mga traffic lights effect. So, sa gitna ka ng road sa Center Island, tas mga 5 to 10 minutes ka nakatayo doon. Pero steady ka dapat. Then, yun, naka-timer. Then, ang ganda ng effect na yun. Parang cinematic kasi blurred yung mga city lights. Kumadaan sila. So, ikaw nakatayo ka lang doon. So, yun. No more questions. If you don't have any more questions, you can open your webcam and take a picture for documentation. How about the others? I want everyone to open their webcam to confirm your attendance for today's session. Okay, June, ikaw na lang. And Merle. All right, 1, 2, and 3. Smile. Okay. So, see you all on Thursday. Teka lang, class. Alam niyo naman na nasa graduation ako ng Thursday, di ba? Alright, very good. So, yun. Kaya wala tayong klase ng Thursday. So, see you on Thursday again. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Sir.